Welcome back to another episode of Stadium Showdown. I'm Jeff Slauson. This episode, we're going to be covering the latest out of Brook Park, showing you a timeline of when the Senate could actually vote on the budget and thus the Browns Stadium funding. And we're going to be breaking down what a PSL is, a term you've heard quite a bit about, but why this could matter for Browns season ticket holders. But first, let's start with that timeline. It's going to be a couple of weeks before the Senate gets back in session and starts to fully discuss what the budget should be according to the Senate. But here's the thing. That's not going to be the end of if the Browns are for sure getting that funding. 19's Dan DeRose walks us through it.
I'm Dan DeRose, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a civics lesson. We're going to take you back to 8th grade in that class you hated when it talked about the process of bills becoming laws and yada, yada, yada. So let's get to it. And we're obviously focusing on the $600 million in bonds that is in the state budget that passed the House. Now, just because it passed the House on April 9th, and I was there in Columbus when it happened, doesn't mean that this is a done deal. We're only kind of halfway through. This is where the civics comes through. Then they took a 2-week recess, the entire House, both the House and the Senate, the legislature in a 2-week recess. We've gotten through 1 week. They'll be on recess again next week and then come back to get some work done. That budget that was passed by the House, here's your civics, will now head to the Ohio Senate. And much like in the House, there's going to be a process. You have all of these committees that have to take a look at what the House has sent them, all of the budget. And we're not just talking the Browns money. Everything is in this budget. School funding, roads, mental health funding, all of this is in the budget. The Browns just happens to be a very big component. The Senate Finance Committee doesn't have any meetings set up just yet, but we know that that's going to hit the calendar once they come back from recess. There could be a final vote by the Senate. What we're hearing might happen on June 12th. So that's going to be another, big day for the Browns to keep an eye on. Now, the problem is what's in the budget right now, the $600 million in bonds, which are basically loans that get paid back over time through the tax revenue that's built up by that massive project. That's not what the governor wanted to do. The governor does not like that process at all. He wanted to double the taxes on sports gambling companies and pay for it that way. So what happens in the Senate, especially in the subcommittee, we're going to have to watch very closely. They could disagree with that $600 million idea from the House. They could take it out and put in something else. They could put in the governor's doubling of taxes. We'll just have to wait and see how they handle it. So next, if they make any changes to the budget, the House has their version, the Senate's going to have their version. If the Senate made any changes to what the House did, well, now it has to go back into subcommittees and they have to debate it out. Well, what's better? What are we going to do? So if the Senate changes the funding for the Browns in any way, there's going to be a huge fight when it goes back to subcommittees. Once it goes to the subcommittees, though, they have a June 30th deadline that it has to be voted on. Both sides have to agree, and it has to head to the governor's desk. Well, what happens then? Governor DeWine could veto anything in the budget. Again, not just the Browns, but anything in the budget. He could veto that $600 million idea in bonds. We've asked the governor several times. Sometimes in the past, he's been very vocal that once it gets to his desk, he's going to veto it. He has not committed to a veto in this situation. He's going to wait and see what the Senate does. Now, does the governor have some friends in the Senate? Yeah, possibly. So we'll have to see. But if the governor vetoed this $600 million idea, the bonds being issued, here's what could happen next. The House can override any governor's veto, but it takes a 3/5 vote in the House. That's tough to do. You have to get 3/5 of the House to agree. Now, the Republicans hold a huge majority, but I don't know that they would have enough votes to override the governor's veto. So as you can see, we are a long way from done, but things have to start moving when we get to May and then into June. This has got to get moving because they do have that June 30th deadline. Dan DeRose, 19 News.
Last week, we brought you part one of Colton Molesky's exclusive interview with Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne. And this week, we're going to play you the second half, where the Cuyahoga County Executive discusses why they feel that the Browns downtown can still remain an option and how they believe they can get to that point.
Stay downtown or go to Brook Park. It's the conversation that's been around the Cleveland Browns for months. And it's not just fans having that conversation. Lawmakers have been having that conversation from Cleveland all the way to Columbus. And I sat down with Cuyahoga County Executive Chris Ronayne to have a one-on-one interview about the stadium and the proposed new location. We showed you the first half of that interview last week. Here's the second half.
So I think the real win in both cities is a stadium renovation plan that creates a transformation for the city of Cleveland and its region downtown on the lakefront, and activating the site next to the airport in a way that brings jobs and income tax. You know, look, we see more onshoring happening, more manufacturing happening, the desire to bring it back on U.S. soil. Well, we've got one of the greatest sites in the country right next to Hopkins Airport in the great city of Brook Park that we ought to look at the win-win development of that site for maximizing income tax and the transformation of the Cleveland lakefront.
You've mentioned that you're willing to go back to the bargaining table or back to at least the table in general with the Browns. Do you feel like you're back there yet, or do you feel like there's some ways before you get back there?
No, look, they call, we pick up the phone, we meet with them. I think with HSG, we are always trying to get to a solution that works for everybody. We just don't think the Brook Park solution is one that's a working solution. It's too risky. So we could keep saying to the Cleveland Browns Haslam Sports Group, come home. You know, come home to your historic home. We've got land to develop around it. We've got a lakefront to transform. It's an exciting future if you think about what we really could do together here in the downtown. And again, activate that site out in Brook Park in a way that really creates a fabulous aviation zone, aero zone around Hopkins and in the industrial heartland that is Brook Park.
To end with this, because we've talked about the taxpayers a lot, I'm just curious, I'm sure you've heard from a lot of people that you're representing, that you're trying to make the best decisions for. What have people been saying to you? What have the people who live here been saying to you?
Overwhelmingly, our Cuyahoga County residents and even our residents in our adjacent counties have said to me when I see them, keep up the fight, because this is what's right. We want to see the Browns downtown and we don't want to get soaked.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks,
again.
Colton.
I really appreciate it.
you.
And coming up after the break, we bring you the latest from Brook Park. Plus, we explain what a PSL is and why Browns season ticket holders may want to look out. Welcome back. This week, Brook Park City Council held their first council meeting since the House's approval of the state budget and the Browns stadium funding. So how do they feel about where they stand as far as actually getting the dome built 19's Brittany Weir has more.
Another week in another Brook Park City Council meeting, and once again, the Browns were a hot topic of discussion. It's been more than a week since the Browns' funding from the state was agreed to by the Ohio House. Brook Park Mayor Edward Orcutt taking that as a good sign to continue moving forward with his plans to move the team to his city. Also, he took time to thank many of those people who have helped secure that funding.
It is now in the State Senate Finance Committee for their review. We should probably have a vote on that somewhere beginning of June, mid-June. And if everything goes well, then it'll be turned over to the governor for his signature. With that said, too, I want to recognize one person. Well, a few of our representatives. Most of our residents may not have had the opportunity to meet them, so I definitely want to recognize them publicly. Representative Chris Glassburn, who's new to Columbus, is our state representative. I want to thank him for his support to this community. He's done a great job of standing up and providing his support for our economic development opportunities.
What hasn't been decided is how the county and Brook Park $600 million portion will be handled. The county has said they won't pitch in, which could leave Brook Park on the hook for the entire share, something that the city might not be able to afford without external help. And that would not include the improvements that are going to be needed in the form of tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure changes and improvements to the lot itself. Mayor Orcutt told me that the current Ford site has around 22,000 parking spaces, but that would need to be doubled by the time the stadium opens to approach the current downtown stadium levels. Mayor Orcutt also shared that they plan to speak with the Ohio Department of Transportation next week, and some of the topics that they'll be discussing include the potential changes needed to the roads surrounding the stadium that Brook Park would be responsible for. ODOT has already met with the Haslams on this issue, but would not be responsible for any of the roads outside of the complex. Reporting, Brittany Weir, 19 News.
There's been a lot of focus, understandably so, about getting the stadium built. But what happens after that? What happens to the fans? What happens to the season ticket holders? You may have heard the term personal seat license multiple times. On this show, we've received quite a few questions about it. But what exactly does it mean, and what could it mean as far as the price you pay? I break that down. A personal seat license, or PSL, is a one-time fee that allows a team to charge fans a rate to have the right to purchase season tickets to the team. Essentially, it's a fee that gives you the right to be a season ticket holder. A one-time expense that does not include the yearly season ticket cost. A cost you might never recoup. Reportedly developed in 1986 by Stanford University tennis coach Dick Gould, the original idea was to allow fans the chance to purchase a seat to their new tennis stadium. In return, your seat was then engraved with your name and you had the right to have first choice to attend any event held there. That idea has since been morphed and zombified in the modern NFL. Teams are now using these PSLs as an extra source of income, or in some cases, as another way to pay for a new stadium. It's become, for some franchises, the only way to be a season ticket holder. A payment before the yearly payment. Teams like the Atlanta Falcons, Baltimore Ravens, and Carolina Panthers all use PSLs. Out of those three, the Falcons have the newest stadium, built in 2017. The Falcons list the PSL prices on their website, as season ticket holders have the option to sell their PSLs to other fans looking to become season ticket holders. The cheapest seat license, currently listed at $750 per seat, with the most expensive at a whopping $50,000. In February, Browns Chief Operating Officer David Jenkins would not confirm or deny if the team will use PSLs, but did allude to the commonality of them in the NFL.
Things like what fans will be asking, kind of, we joked in there, but PSLs, ticket prices, those are things that have not been worked out yet.
Correct.
That's too far.
Look, I think it's fair to acknowledge that PSLs and those sorts of things are common components of stadium projects today, but we're just not far enough along to have clear answers on those yet.
The NFL's next new stadium is one that has heavily used PSLs. Just 3 hours east on I-90, the Buffalo Bills are currently putting the finishing touches on their new stadium in Orchard Park. They were able to come to a payment agreement on an open-roof stadium that will play its first games in 2026. They used PSLs to help pay for the stadium. Here's New York Governor Kathy Hochul at a ceremony a few weeks ago.
This has a huge economic benefit for not just Western New York, but the state. And in fact, we calculated, this is before Josh Allen got the big pay increase, that by year 17, just our income taxes alone on the players who play here, by year 17, we'd be more than fully reimbursed as a state. So I saw the economic benefit. It's also not just an economic driver, it's part of our identity. And this is hard to explain to people who live elsewhere in the state, but I will tell you this, having been governor now the few years since we negotiated this deal, there is an energy and support for this team that was never there before. I have been the biggest booster, but especially how well they're playing. There's a lot of excitement throughout the state, so I think that's in the past. People know it was really smart that I was able to negotiate that we're not on the hook for cost overruns. So our $600 million, again, will be paid off by this income tax levied on the players. So we're in a good place.
Fans have been putting together this map to report how much their seat license has been priced at. According to that, they report the cheapest PSL is $5,000 per ticket. The most expensive, $50,000. Again, per seat, not including the annual season ticket fee that would end up being thousands of dollars in addition to the one-time payment of a PSL. In most cases, the PSL can be sold to other fans when they are ready to end their season tickets. But here's the thing. The market is entirely dependent on fan demand. So, if no fans want to buy your PSL, you might be out of luck. And teams do not purchase the PSL back at face value. So what does this mean? Well, in some cases, becoming a season ticket holder can become an economic gamble. Now again, the Browns have not said whether or not they will have PSLs at the new stadium, but going based off of current NFL trends, it does seem like it is something that is being strongly considered and a potential that it could happen. And our poll of the week goes along with that. Would you pay a license fee for your Browns season tickets? And again, that license fee, at least according to the Buffalo Bills new stadium, could be at a minimum $5,000 per seat. Then, of course, on top of that, every year you would pay your season ticket fee. But would you be willing to pay that? We really want to know. This could range from $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000. Could be quite a bit of money. So go ahead and answer that poll right now, cleveland19.com/vote. Yes or no, if you'd be willing to pay that PSL, that license fee for your Browns season ticket. And of course, if you're interested in any of our previous coverage from the Stadium Showdown, go ahead, scan the QR code on your screen right now. Every single episode available at your fingertips. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back, and now's the time of our show where we answer your questions. For those of you that scanned the QR code at home, now we can actually answer what you think and what you want to know a little bit deeper. And of course, if you still want to ask a question, you can scan that QR code. We're going to give you an opportunity to do that once again in just a little bit. But first, let's get to Steven's question. How much are taxes going to increase? Who will use the old stadium? Great question here, Steven. First of all, according to the Browns, taxes will not increase. They're not taking this from an increase in taxes. The money that is being used to pay for it would be taken from taxes specifically on items and things purchased at the Brook Park complex. Those taxes will then go toward paying for the stadium. So a straight up tax is not going up. The last question that he asked here is who will use the old stadium? There has been no discussion from Cuyahoga County and from the city of Cleveland on what a future looks like without a downtown stadium. So they've not said what they would do with it. Every rendering that we have seen about what the waterfront could look like has included a stadium. So we don't know what a potential tenant would be for a stadium that is no longer in use, because both Cuyahoga County and the city of Cleveland have never addressed a possible future where the Browns are not downtown. Our last question here, courtesy of Razco. Why is the state about to spend $600 million on the Browns stadium? Is the state buying shares in the Browns? Another great question here. No, the state is not buying shares in the Browns. The state is essentially just fronting money to give the Browns the chance to build the stadium, with the belief that the amount of tax revenue that they will get from that will end up being profitable for the state. But they are not buying any sort of a percentage in the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why the Haslams are moving from the city to Brook Park is because they want to own everything. Right now, the city of Cleveland owns the downtown stadium. They own the land. They own everything around there. The Browns want their own piece of land. They want their own stadium. They want all of the revenue. So that is why they are making this decision, not to sell a piece to the state, but to make sure they get 100% of the profits that are going in and out of the Browns complex. And again, wanted to show you that QR code. If you have a question, go ahead and scan the QR code on your screen right now. Would love to be able to answer anything you want to know. Of course, this is something we are going to continue to cover. So if you have a couple questions that pop up in the future, make sure that QR code is scanned. All right, and thank you so much for watching our latest episode of Stadium Showdown. We're going to be off for a couple of weeks because next week we have a draft day special airing 8 o'clock on all of 19 News' digital platforms. We're going to be breaking down who the Browns could pick, reaction to the Browns pick, first round pick in quite a long time. Of course, we're going to want to make sure that we have you covered, so you can put the main coverage on, have us on your phone as well. We'll be able to break down everything and anything related to that Browns draft pick. For now, I'm Jeff Slauson with 19 News. If you'd like to watch any of our previous coverage, you can scan that QR code that's on your screen right now. We'll see you in a few weeks.